Bismillah. Just gonna wait for Sidi Abubakar or Sidi. There he is, perfect. He's right here. Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum, Sidi.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi. How are you?
I'm well, how are you?
I'm very well, alhamdulillah.
It's so good to have you on. Thank you for...
Pleasure to see you.
Thank you. As everyone, just let people join in, inshallah, and I kind of get to it.
Inshallah.
People probably going to be doing their iftar or praying, but inshallah, I'll be on for 24 hours if people miss it, inshallah.
Okay.
So, as I was saying, alhamdulillah. Okay, people join in. Okay, let's go straight into it, man.
Bismillah.
So, what do you do?
Oh boy. Well, I practice as a herbalist.
Yep.
Which and I'm the kind of herbalist that really doesn't make a distinction between what's physical and what's psychological.
Okay.
Because my understanding of the body, which is a Quranic understanding, is that a ruh, a soul, is placed in the body.
Yeah. And
then it differentiates its quwwah, its capacities through that body.
Okay.
Right? And so your psyche and your physiology are completely linked.
Okay.
So you sometimes, like you'll see, you can tell the mood of someone by the way that they hold their body.
Okay.
So, classic. So in treating, you treat as you treat physiologically, you also treat psychologically.
Brilliant. Yeah. So then, where did the kind of your understanding or your passion for what was your impetus to kind of get you into like medicine?
Wow, it's a long story. I was born in England.
Yeah.
And I went to Guyana, where my family is from, at the age of 3.
Okay.
And when I went there, I was a very talkative, very precocious, very questioning child.
Yeah.
And I think after about the first or second day, my grandmother realized that something had to be done with me.
Yeah.
And she would deposit me with this old woman who was in her 80s.
Wow.
And we'd pick herbs and she'd tell me stories. And she was a herbalist.
Okay.
And I spent my mornings with her.
Yeah.
So I began to learn about herbs from a very early age. We just chat, and it was my entrance into kind of Guyanese culture.
Okay.
Yeah. So years later, it was one of those things that I kept returning to, and sometimes people would come and ask me questions. And I said, "How the hell do you know that I know that?" I mean, I didn't, And about 10 years ago, officially I'm 35, but at the age of 40, at the age of 40, there was a change, and Allah kept confronting me with this knowledge that I had.
Yeah.
And then my wife fell ill, and I kept taking her to doctors and people, and they made it better, and some of them made it worse.
Really?
And the last one was pretty bad, and I said, listen, I'll treat you.
Okay.
And that was, there's a tipping point.
Yeah.
So up to then, I'd been resisting.
Yeah.
And at that point, I realized that he got me. I had to do it.
Okay.
And then once I started doing that, and around the same time, I wrote the book Know Yourself.
Yeah, we're gonna go into that book.
Yeah.
It's a perfect segue into the book. So how did the book come about? And tell my viewers, like, what is the book? I mean, by the way, I've read it several times. I recommend the book to everybody. You can get it still on Amazon, yeah?
Yeah, it's on Amazon.
It's called Know Yourself. It's transformed, I would say, my life and the way I see people, but I'll let the author himself speak about the book.
Yeah. Well, in that knowledge of there's a knowledge of how people are, but it's a knowledge of how the creation is.
Okay.
And that knowledge comes from observing the creation.
Okay.
And you have to and just observing the creation, just looking.
Yeah.
And the creation has a harmony with the seasons. So if you look at the seasons, you'll see the seasons reflected in many things.
Okay.
And this book introduces people to a very ancient knowledge.
Yeah.
Which is really about seeing people by the seasons and the elements. So there are 4 main types.
Yep.
and it's based on a very simple premise, is that by knowing yourself, you begin to empathize with others and you begin to know others.
Okay.
So by understanding yourself, you get a chance to understand others.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then do you want to go quickly tell them what the 4 types are, or should they get the book?
Well, we could talk about that. I mean, the 4 types are the earthy type.
Yeah.
That's the one who likes to think. They have to think things through first. If they're going to say something, then they have to really reflect on it first.
Yeah.
And that type is called the melancholic.
Okay.
And you can tell them because melancholics tend to like to be nicely dressed, but they tend to wear dark colors.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other type is the phlegmatic.
Okay.
And the phlegmatics they're a bit like water.
Okay.
You know, it's the kind of person that, you know, you're trying to get them to do something and they don't want to do it, but you just can't put your hands on them.
Okay. Okay.
Right? They just slip between your fingers.
Yeah.
They're great observers. They're great listeners.
Yeah.
They tend to like colors, you know, light blues.
Okay.
You'll see them with blues and turquoises and light greens.
Okay.
Yeah, they tend to be drawn to those colors.
Okay.
They tend to be fairly round-faced.
Okay, that's melancholic. That's the phlegmatic.
Phlegmatic.
Yeah? Okay.
And they tend to have very easy natures. They don't like confrontation. They'll avoid confrontation.
Okay.
Yeah. So the phlegmatic and the melancholic, which we would call the cool types.
Yeah.
Both of these types, they find being with large groups of people draining, tiring.
Okay.
Yeah, so they have to withdraw from that.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we go to the hotter types. So
yeah.
That's one type, which is the sanguine, which is in harmony with spring.
Yeah.
We're in spring right now in this hemisphere.
Yeah.
And those spring type people, they love to communicate. They have bright colors. It's like this, like, you know, the flowers bursting out.
Yeah.
Etc. They love to communicate. They're really changeable. They change their minds all the time. You know, they're butterfly minds, and they're wonderful to be with.
Okay.
They tell great stories.
Yes.
So they're lots of fun, but they can make you pull your hair out if you have to live with them. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they tell great stories.
Okay.
And they're colorful.
Okay.
And then you have the other type, which is like summer or fire.
Yeah.
And this type is called a choleric.
Okay.
And you can always tell a choleric.
Very easily.
Yeah, you can tell a choleric because they're fiery. You know, they like to, if they're talking about something and they're making a point. You know,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you see them standing up, you'll see them with one, you know, the warrior stance,
yeah.
which is one foot back and 1 foot forward and planted.
Okay.
They might lean back or whatever, but you can see that they're ready.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're badger, you know, because it's like in the summer when the fruits are on the tree.
Yeah.
You want to pick the fruits, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So the choleric feels a need to get it done.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So someone asked the question, but I was going to ask it as well. Is everyone just going to be one type then? One type out of the 4?
Well, how do I put it? I mean, what you find is that there's going to be a type which is your base, which
like
is
like a dominant type.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like your foundation.
Yeah.
And then everybody has everything in them, but then the other types will be expressed from within that foundation.
Okay. So
it's almost like, I call it the master and the servant.
Okay.
You know, because when I was doing this, I was looking at the muatta.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. How can I explain this? And I thought that the fiqh of the master and servant really got that.
Of course.
So
yeah.
the servant. So the other types are serve this master type, which is the base.
Okay.
Yeah.
And someone asked in the comments as well, can you be a combination of 2? So kind of.
Well, you've got everything in you, but you'll find that there'll be 2 which are dominant. So there's one which is the base, and then the next one which is dominant. And you can see it very quickly.
Okay. And the question then comes in, okay, I got this knowledge. What does it help me do?
It helps you really accept yourself.
Okay.
And understand how to work with yourself and not against yourself.
Okay.
So for instance, Sanguines
Yeah.
or spring type, they know by getting things out, you know,
Yeah.
they talk and they get it out. And so often they don't know what they want to say until they say it.
Yeah.
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 Whereas the melancholic will work it out before they say it.
Okay.
Okay. So if you take, so when a sanguine then tries to work like a melancholic, which is to work it all out before they say it,
Yeah.
it's really hard for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what you do, you know, it's then they're able to find strategies
Yeah.
that then teach them how to basically become familiar with what's going on underneath the surface earlier than when they said it.
And I
Yeah.
get that. So
yeah.
if what happens then if you have dominant types that are kind of opposites then? Can that happen?
Yeah.
Okay.
That happens a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, because in the combinations,
Yeah.
you have combinations which are complementary,
Okay.
and then you have combinations which are non-complementary.
Okay. And
So,
non-complementary would does it
so,
result in like an inner struggle for people?
yeah, it tends to. So,
Okay.
like a non-complementary type would be the phlegmatic and the choleric.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what tends to happen is that if they're in balance, you'll see that they appear like a phlegmatic,
Yeah.
or they appear like a choleric.
Someone said that's called bipolar. Is that necessarily the case?
Well, I think bipolar has to do with a pathology. It's to do with someone's ill, psychologically ill.
Yeah.
But what you can find is that when you've got a non-complementary type,
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes they can appear like as one or the other.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't know which side of the bed they'll wake up on.
Got you.
So like the most difficult. So I'm going to go back to this complementary thing. So you got the phlegmatic and the choleric
Yeah.
mixture, which is fire and water.
Yeah.
So fire and water makes steam.
Yes.
So that's an easy mix.
Okay.
It's an easier mix
Yeah.
than the other non-complementary, which is the melancholic, which is earth
Yeah.
and air.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, earth and air don't mix.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's a really difficult type to master.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So you said all this is to help you say, as you beautifully put it, to work with yourself as opposed to against yourself.
Yeah.
I like that. So everyone, if you can get the book Know Yourself on Amazon, if you don't know where to find it, inbox me, I'll give the link. But moving on, we're in the age of Corona, COVID-19. From a medical perspective, what is happening and what's your thoughts?
Sorry, this is something I'm doing a bit of research on.
Okay.
I'm still looking into. Yeah.
Okay. So what's your initial kind of thought?
My initial thought is that the COVID-19,
yeah,
right, which is the disease, and then the virus which causes, which is SARS-CoV-2.
Okay.
Right. COVID-19, I think, is a cardiovascular disease. It's a disease which affects blood circulation.
Okay.
And its health.
Okay.
More, but it has a respiratory presentation.
Okay.
And that has to do with the way that the virus actually works.
Okay.
Because viruses need to get into cells. Because first of all, there's something you have to talk about, which is what viruses are.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Yep.
Okay. Because a virus is this really strange thing. It's a life form.
Yeah.
But it's also dead.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So the virus exists in these two phases.
Yeah.
One phase in which it's dead.
Yeah.
And then when it's in circumstances in which it can live for long enough, it then comes alive.
Okay.
Okay. Then the only objective that a virus has is to replicate itself, is to reproduce.
Yeah.
But it can't reproduce by itself.
Okay.
So what it needs to do is to get into a host, find a cell that it can work with, and then get into that cell and use the cell's mechanisms to copy itself.
Okay.
Right? And the problem is that when it's doing that, that will cause you problems. Okay? So what CoV2 does is that in order to get into the cells, it targets a cell that has a receptor on it called the ACE2 receptor.
Okay.
And the ACE2 receptor is involved in blood pressure regulation. It is involved in an emergency measure that the body has. It's its main emergency measure for dealing with blood pressure regulation.
Okay.
And when it does this, it disrupts this capacity.
Okay.
So if you've got comorbidities, or if you've got diseases like diabetes or any other, or cardiovascular disease, it means that your body no longer has access to its emergency in that same way. And that is what, in a lot of cases, causes death.
The death and cover. Okay.
Yeah. So that's one. That's how it works. Then the next thing is that because we haven't prepared for pandemics,
yes,
we have our governments haven't prepared our health services for something that we've been screaming about for the last 25 years, that this is coming.
Yeah.
Okay. And we haven't done anything.
So
as a result of that,
an airborne pandemic was inevitable.
An airborne pandemic, but some kind of pandemic.
Okay.
It could be an airborne type pandemic, could be a waterborne pandemic, but pandemics are inevitable.
Why?
We have cities.
Yeah.
You know, a small city now is a city of 1 million people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
6-7 million people in a city.
Okay.
Then the next thing that we're doing is we're flying right across the world. We want more experiences, so we're going further and further into the wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in more and more numbers. We come back, you know, in 24 hours, you are in China.
Yes.
Right? You can be in the other side of the world.
Yeah.
So you go there, you may be ill. Most illnesses have a gestation period, have a period in which it has to develop before it shows any presentations. So you're back home by then. Through the airport, we're in a plane, you know, maybe got on the train.
Yeah.
Walk through the airport. And depending on how that disease is spread, then you've just transmitted it to all of these people. So 2 weeks later, when you have a presentation, you've perhaps come into contact with 100 people.
Yeah.
Right.
So if it's inevitable, is there anything that we can do then?
Well, yes, there are some things that we can do. The one thing that we have to do is we really have to educate the public. And this is a serious problem with this pandemic.
Yeah.
Or how this has been handled, because really we needed to really help people to understand how viruses work.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? Because if people understand some of these things, many things make sense. And then how to behave responsibly with what we've got can begin to emerge.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So the instead of educating, what they've gone for is panic. Panic, because panic makes people more easily controllable.
Of course.
Yeah. And yeah, so this really is a problem. I'm speaking of, I can only speak about the British and the American experience.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That's the majority of the viewers anyway.
Yeah.
So you're saying the way it's been handled has been completely wrong.
Has been completely wrong. And the other thing is that we've had lockdown.
Yeah.
We've had lockdown because our health services handle this, because 80% who are infected with this virus, they won't have any symptoms, or they'll have mild symptoms.
Yes.
The problems are in the other 20%. Yeah. And when that other 20% only are very, very specific. It's only the elderly are the danger zone.
Yes.
Can
you hear me?
I can.
I was saying, but this thing of like, okay, they're talking about herd immunity. Is that somewhat inevitable then?
Well, with flu type viruses, that is what naturally happens.
Okay.
Yeah, the virus spreads. Enough people have immunity, and so what we call vectors, which is how the virus will be transmitted from person to person.
Okay.
It keeps hitting people who have immunity, so it can't go any further.
Okay.
So then that slows down the
Spread.
velocity of its spread, how
Yeah.
quickly it spreads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
is
this
it
is what happens.
the question then is lockdown, no lockdown. Is it inevitable that a lot of us are going to catch it?
Viruses like this, yes.
Okay.
The flu type viruses that have influenza type symptoms,
Yes.
because of the kinds of strategies that they use,
Yeah.
they spread.
Okay.
Yeah. They're spreadable and spread.
Okay. So
Yeah.
basically, lockdown just not to ensure the NHS is not overwhelmed. Then, basically,
Precisely. That's the main
when
reason.
it comes down to spreading, we're most likely gonna get it anyway.
Well, the lockdown does two things.
Yeah.
One is it stops it spreading. It eases the NHS.
Yeah.
But you see, the at-risk group is a very specific demographic.
Yeah.
It's the over 50s.
Yeah.
Right. In fact, it's very specifically the over 65s.
Okay.
Right. When in this group, you've got high death rates.
Yes.
Okay. So what lockdown really should do is help us to protect this group.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Because if they're from that group and they have comorbidities, then they're really at risk.
Yes.
The problem with any of those strategies,
yeah,
is that it ends with a vaccine because.
Just about to ask the question. So you're a natural health expert and a herbalist. Should people take the vaccine when it comes out?
We've forgotten about diseases like smallpox.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And polio.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I don't know how my people feel about this. And again, this is my very limited reading. Yeah. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. Again, I've had family members who've had polio, and I've seen what the malaria drugs and the vaccines done in my country, Gambia, and I've seen vaccines to work as smallpox, polio. So I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but then you've been natural health expert. Would you say people get the vaccine or not?
This is one of those things. Is the answer it has nuances.
Okay.
Right. Look, I'm. You study fiqh.
Yeah.
Now, from the point you really have to think about this from the point of view of someone with responsibility.
Yes.
How do you deal with public health?
Yeah.
As a governor, imagine that you're a governor. How do you deal with public health?
Yeah.
So, if people can be responsible enough and work together to deal with our at-risk groups,
yes,
then perhaps what could happen is we could protect our at-risk groups until that spread loses its velocity.
Yes.
In the mainstream.
Yes.
And then they're very limited outbreaks.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then you can bring that other group back in.
Yeah. Okay.
But the fabric of our society in Britain doesn't actually work like that. I mean, everybody's talking about their freedoms.
Yes.
Right. And very rarely are people talking about their responsibilities.
Mm.
And, if in the case like that, if I were a governor,
yeah,
if my people cannot do that, I would have to say, well, then you have to be vaccinated. If you want me to treat you if you want to make sure that we have hospitals that treat you when you're ill,
yes,
then you've got to be vaccinated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is not the answers to these things are not simple ones. I think fiqh gives us the ability to see nuances and to understand context.
Of course.
So this has context.
Yes.
I am not fond of vaccines.
Okay.
But vaccines have a place.
Okay, explore that further. Why are you not fond of it?
We're playing with a lot of things. We're using tissue.
Yeah.
Okay, viruses themselves are
Yeah.
one of the most widespread life forms.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So if we test for certain types of viruses or types of microbes, we're testing for very specific types.
Yeah.
So sometimes we're using tissue in scientific experiments.
Yeah.
Or to develop things like that.
Okay.
And sometimes We have tested for certain viruses that we know about
Yes.
in the tissue, but there sometimes can be things there that we did not consider.
Yes.
Yeah, which can have an effect.
Okay.
So that's one issue. Then the other issue is in how sometimes these things are manufactured.
Okay.
Yeah. And then two, sorry, no, I'd like to, I love numbers. But another thing you've got is that sometimes we can vaccinate indiscriminately.
Okay.
So we just vaccinate indiscriminately. And sorry, it needs more for context.
Okay. No,
Okay.
it's fine.
We've got two problems.
Yeah.
One, we've got the issue of vaccination.
Yeah.
And then we got the issue of antibiotic, that the antibiotics that we have been using are beginning not to work.
Yes,
because we've overused them.
Yes.
Right. So we've got these two public health crises coming on us like two tsunamis.
Okay.
Yeah. In which you've got the age of pandemics.
Yeah.
And then you've got the age of antibiotic resistance.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. And a lot of the, people in the past would die of influenza in large numbers.
Yeah.
This doesn't really happen that much anymore because we use antibiotics.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is that here, I don't like vaccines, but you have to look at how do we deal with public health.
Yeah, makes sense. And
I think as Muslims, we have to raise the tone of our discussion.
Okay.
Because we really, when Allah says, you are the best ummah amongst mankind.
Yeah.
Right? Why? Because you enjoin the right and you forbid the wrong.
Yeah.
That means you have to know what's right and you have to know what's wrong.
Yeah.
And for that, you need context. So the level of discussion has to be a superior level of discussion.
Agreed.
If you want to be khairul ummatin.
Agreed.
Because it's conditional.
Agreed. Lovely. Not moving on, but I like this. A lot of young people. So we're going to talk a bit about healthy lifestyle choices. But before we get this, I want to question you about is becoming vegan the way forward for human beings? But that's just questions to think about. But a lot of time people talk about how much of a bearing is your psyche and your physical health.
Well, first of all, can you have a psyche without a body?
Is that my question to me?
Yeah.
Depends how you define psyche.
Okay. Do you have awareness without your body?
No.
Okay. So your body situates you in the dunya.
Yes.
In the world.
Yeah.
And part of that is your psyche. In order for us to think about it, we separate psyche and body.
Yeah.
But actually, you
can't.
Yeah. It's the same.
Yeah.
Okay. So that when somebody's coming to see me,
yeah,
because in my office, as they're coming through my door, I can hear them walking, and I've already can work out some things about what's going on with them. And I think when we did that, the first course, we looked at that, right? I showed you how that works.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you'll see the way that they are. That are they looking at the ground? Are they up? Are they bowed over? For which part of their body is bent? Do they bend over? Right. All of this tells you about psychologically where they are, and it also tells you the kinds of diseases that they'll suffer from.
Wow.
Yeah. Things like when people feel trapped.
Yeah.
There's particular signs that are present on their bodies that you can see. One is that circulation to the skin is restricted.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's certain things you can tell about the kinds of emotions they are experiencing just by looking at signs on their bodies.
Wow. But then that's okay, so that's definitely emotional. So you can tell maybe someone like anxious, for example, or someone feeling trapped, as you said. But how much of a bearing does it have on the physical health? And could you give me an example, for example, of that?
Well, I was saying if somebody feels trapped,
Yeah.
then what tends to happen
Yeah.
is that you'll find that blood is turned away from the skin, is
Mm.
turned away from the limbs, and is pooled in the center, in the torso.
Wow.
And it doesn't circulate well.
Wow.
So you'll find that they will suffer. If that goes on for a long time, they will suffer from autoimmune conditions and inflammatory conditions.
Wow.
Yeah. Some
And
people,
all that is become manifest because of the initial feeling.
yeah, because they are in a situation which is oppressive.
Wow.
And they cannot escape it.
So the question is, don't worry, we'll come to the questions afterwards in the box. I just want to have that discussion. Last 20 minutes, we'll come to the questions then.
Okay.
But the question is then, like, people, a lot of young people as well speak about mental health a lot. So you have like, anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia, and a host of like, and there's like a whole push now to take care of your mental health. There's a lot of young people that can manifest in their lifestyle choices or people they hang around with and whatever. And you hear a lot of people saying, this is energy now. I'm feeding off people's energy. I got to be around good energy. So quick, in very shortly, is such a thing as good energy?
Yep.
Perfect. That's fine. That's fine. We'll come back to that as well. But then the question is, a lot of people then accuse my generation, you lot are just snowflakes. Our parents handled so much more and didn't care about mental health and they got through it. You lot are just kind of becoming a weak generation. So what's your response to that? Are we just a weak generation, or is that we've come to a point where we can focus on these things and they are important?
Poor context. Look, the human being has impulses and needs.
Yeah.
And in as much as a society can fulfill, allows those needs to map onto things that they can do,
okay,
and those impulses to express themselves, then people have a chance of being physically and psychologically healthy.
Okay.
When you see high rates of psychological illness,
yes,
know that we just got that wrong. Yeah. So one of the things that's happening here is that the responsibility for your mental health is being put on the person. It's like a personal guilt.
Okay.
Right? No, this is a societal matter. If 1/3 of our society has suffered mental illness, then something's wrong with our society.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not about weak youth. This is something is wrong with our society. Okay?
Yeah.
After, I was listening to...
Okay, so Karen, sorry.
I was listening to an interview with someone called Ernst Junger.
Okay.
Who was a German writer. He fought in the First World War. He fought in the First World War, began in the war on horseback in the cavalry.
Wow.
And ended up in a tank regiment. Yeah?
Yeah.
He was part of the coup against Hitler, and he was not executed because of his fame.
Okay.
So he continued, and he died in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And so he was reflecting.
Okay.
He said, look, when I was a child, so this would be late 1880s.
Yeah.
He said, they used to threaten me with school. And he said, I didn't know what that was. And I didn't believe that it existed, but it was terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
He said, and one day I was on the balcony and I saw all of these children in uniforms. He said, and I was really repelled. I found it repugnant that you could regiment children like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So mass education that we have is very recent.
Yep.
So our experiment on the human being, in dealing with the human being in the way that we have, is very, very recent.
Yeah.
And I think that we're now beginning to understand what are the costs and the implications of that.
Okay. So okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we really have to look at this matter of psychological health
Yeah.
in a very, very different way. And I think that falls on your generation
Okay.
to enter into that conversation about what you are experiencing,
Okay.
what our society is like, what's wrong. The problem is that we don't have people for your generation, is that sometimes there is no bedrock, because in my generation, things like classical history were part of what you did, you learned, right?
Yeah.
You looked at, at societies before,
Yeah.
right? And so you have something to compare it with.
Yeah.
But in your generation, the emphasis is on the new.
Yeah. We're gonna go for a perfect segue again. Would be a couple questions then. What it, is it that we have to do? Retreat from society, like as in like we kind of become hermits because and what are the I'm gonna throw loads of questions at you, yeah, but they're all hopefully linked about society and psychological health, mental health. Because is it that we have to like do silent retreats? Is it that we have to retreat from the dunya, become hermits? Or and then what are the effects of this constant uh what's it called, entertainment that we live in? I mean, I for myself, I'm 26, I can already know that my attention span has been decreased because of social media. And I attribute that to social media. I could be wrong. That's just my personal experience. I feel like things always have, again, as you said, the focus on the new, the focus on what's current, the focus have to keep switching things up to keep myself engaged. Was that like a direct, and is that what kind of, what's the word? What kind of effect can that have on the human being?
Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, you've asked me a lot of questions there. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill it down to you.
Okay.
In a slightly different way. I don't want to throw you because I know that you're a descendant of Omar Taal Fouti.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when Omar Taal Fouti saw what was wrong in his society, what did he do?
He got up and fought arms.
Well, he got up. He didn't do that first. He taught.
Yeah, he obviously taught the people. Yes.
Yeah, he taught, and then eventually, what happened was that the people, the kingdoms around him, they decided, the kings of those, they decided that they weren't going to have anything to do with it. They didn't want that. It was pushy enough, and they were going to stick with that.
Yeah.
And then he was forced to fight them.
Yeah.
Okay. The thing is that we have a responsibility to understand the challenges of our time.
Yes.
And, you know, because everybody talks about dawah and you know, what is Islam? Islam is to live in submission.
Yes.
Basically, you have to solve the contradictions of your age. And the contradictions of your age aren't solved by just talking about it. You have to change the way you live.
Yeah.
Right? You have to find a way through the madness to health and sanity and mercy. Because if it doesn't have mercy in it, it's not it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So, yes, our age has all of these things. There is social media. There is this.
Yeah.
What we have to do is we have to sit down, we have to talk, and we have to find ways. We have to talk to find ways of addressing our situation.
Yeah.
And it's in a way that's not confrontational.
Yeah.
But it's transformative.
Yeah. Yeah.
Historically, this has been usually a job of the people of Tasawwuf.
Yeah.
And what will happen is that the transformation then goes, well, we know how to control people when they're like that.
Yeah.
But this is another kind of creature. And that's where the system, so to speak, then begins to have a problem. Yeah. And today it was the birthday of Malcolm X.
Yeah.
So if you read the story of Malcolm X, then you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Exactly. Beautiful. Beautiful. We've got quite a few questions and stuff I'm going to pull up, inshallah, from people. Got quite a few. Du-du-du-du-du. Okay, let's go for this one. How do we end anxiety symptoms fastest?
But by not focusing on the symptoms.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
But focusing on what really is causing the anxiety. Dealing with that.
Okay.
Changing that. Changing the, it's like you got a fire burning down a building.
Yep.
Move the fuel. Move the fuel, no fire.
Got just that one. Then we go to, from a medical perspective, do you think the virus could eventually disappear completely or completely disappear?
That's not how viruses work.
Okay.
It's biologically it's impossible.
Okay.
It's almost impossible. But yeah, it's like you'll still find pockets of smallpox every now and again.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had some things in the, let me scroll up. I'm scrolling up. Studies have shown that the BMA groups are the higher risk of COVID-19. Why might this be the case?
Okay, this is a virus that follows an influenza type strategy.
Yeah.
They attack tissue which is called epithelial tissue, which is barrier tissue.
Yeah.
Okay, barrier tissue exists in our lungs. It separates outside and inside the body, in our guts, etc.
Yeah.
When people are chronically stressed, the tight junctions on barrier tissue, on epithelial tissue, are actually damaged.
Yeah.
Right? So that is one problem with this, is that you're dealing with a community that has to deal with a hell of a lot of stresses. Yeah? And that has physiological consequences. That's one problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another problem is that you're dealing with communities that have high rates of comorbidities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But diabetes,
etc.
Yeah.
And again, okay, if you're chronically stressed, if you're really stressed, then you reach for comfort foods. The comfort foods are carbohydrate rich foods.
Yeah.
Because they're sedating. Yeah. So there are a number of things that we have to deal with. One of them is the ubiquity of racism.
Yeah.
And our need to address some of that.
Yeah. BMA is black ethnic minorities. Sorry, someone asking what that meant. You have so much fun to unpack, man. I haven't got that. Okay, cool. Before I move on to the second one, people say this thing. I just want to get your thoughts on it. Can trauma be passed down?
Yeah, I mean, you pass down many other things. So there's something called epigenetics. Yes. Okay. This is now a known scientific fact. We've done experiments with rats, etc.
Yeah.
And we know that it's passed down. We know the mechanisms by which that happens.
Because someone said interesting. So you're saying that in a society, let's say where black and ethnic minority people are, confront so much racism database, confront so much of society going against them, this could in turn affect how their physical health.
Yes, and this is okay. My daughter just finished her degree. She just did her degree in classical studies.
Okay.
One of the things she looked at was how did the Roman Empire, how was the British Empire influenced by the Roman Empire?
Yeah.
Now, the British Empire had two ways of dealing with colonies.
Okay.
Colonies that were majority white, they gave them relative independence.
Yeah.
Because they would be able to trade with them. So they wanted them to develop their economy so they could trade. Yeah. Colonies which were majority dark. Yeah. They treated very differently. Okay. They didn't think that they had the capacity to handle that kind of independence. And they did not want them to develop an industrial base, etc. So this order was then, so in independence, basically the same kind of order was continued.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with really entrenched socio-racial control mechanisms, which are about restricting access to economy, which then creates the kind of psychological issues that ensure that you have a global caste society.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And within that are peculiar types of trauma,
Yeah.
generational trauma,
Yeah.
which ensure the transmission of caste.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, it is sociological, and that sociological aspect must have physiological.
Perfect. So, okay. People post your questions in the comments. We'll go through some of them. Another one then, before we wrap up, would be, a lot of time people talk about now, a lot of my friends even are vegan and, we have to leave meat. Is a plant-based diet the way forward, health-wise? Completely being vegan. I mean, you don't eat anything from an animal. And is meat problematic?
Whoa, that's a long one. That one requires context.
Okay.
It really does require context. Our diets are too meat heavy.
Okay.
That is definite.
Yeah.
Right? And meat heavy diets are dangerous diets.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. The question as to whether diets are appropriate or inappropriate.
Okay.
And appropriateness means that you have to have context. What is the situation that these people are in? Yeah. If you're dealing with somebody who's in the Arctic,
yeah,
in the tundra, can't grow anything,
yeah,
they got to eat meat.
yeah,
You make them vegetarian,
yeah,
they have to import it or they die.
yeah,
So that conversation is not even a conversation you can have.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to. It's like fats.
Yeah.
In societies where people are working physically very hard.
Yeah.
Fats will give you the longest burn.
Okay.
Yeah, and so you'll find that their diets would be fat heavy.
Okay.
And they don't need to eat as frequently.
Yeah.
If you and that's something you call ketosis. Your body goes
into ketosis.
burning fat. Yeah. So diets are about appropriateness. So it's you gotta match it.
So basically, match your diet should match your lifestyle, basically.
The diet has to match your lifestyle, but then you have to understand that science.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll go on to that in a second. Last but not least, another question I get a lot, and I don't know if you want to deal with it or not. The issue: how would a young person deal with a pornography addiction?
Pornography is part of. Pornography has become part of the entertainment space of our world.
Yeah.
The problem with pornography is that it really messes up sex.
Yeah.
You end up not having sex with the person that's with you. You're having sex with an idea.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what they like, but you have an idea what they like. And even the person who is, both of them have ideas about what they think sex should be.
Yeah.
So one of the things about us sexual responses based upon pornography is that they're unfulfilling. So I believe that you really have to teach people about relationships, because sex has a context is within I really have to teach people about relationships and what happens in relationships. And once you begin to do that, pornography reveals itself as some very empty and unfulfilling nonsense. Yeah, and you find that most people, once you begin to educate them like that, and part of that is that you actually have to teach them to have sex.
That's easy enough. We covered that already. And last question: can the immune system be strengthened without a pharmaceutical vaccine?
Well, yeah, because pharmaceutical vaccines don't really strengthen the
immune system. Exactly.
system.
They don't. Exactly.
They don't really strengthen the immune system. What they do is that they introduce the immune system to oh God, I'm sorry. They introduce the immune system to a particular microbes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the immune system doesn't have to spend as long responding to that because it's already prepared for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very different from strengthening the immune system. So the vaccine doesn't deal with that. We have to deal with that, and that's part of a lack of education that we don't know how to do that.
Yeah. And this last question: what are your views on meditation and its benefits?
Every people have a meditation.
Yeah.
When I went to Guyana, I used to. My grandfather and I would sit outside on the veranda, just around Maghrib time, before Maghrib, late Asr.
Yeah.
And we would just sit looking. You know, sometimes we look at the sky, you just look. And you'd be relaxed. I realized later on, it was a meditative state. And we'd spend there for like an hour. And sometimes the conversation would go like this. I wonder where they're coming from. Yeah?
Yeah.
So I realized when I was introduced to meditation, I realized that, that is, meditation is part of every human situation.
Yeah.
In human situations that are peculiarly stressful, then they have to bring it out and then develop it into something that is more of a technology in a way.
Got you.
So like yoga.
Okay, yeah. Like a form.
Yeah.
It gives it a form.
Yeah, they really have to give it a form because the society really lacks certain types of things.
Got you. And the last question, if I'd like to study herbalism, should I study biomedicine at uni first?
I think that would be really helpful.
Okay.
Yeah. One of the things that you have to do is you've got biomedicine.
Yeah.
I study biomedicine also, right? I'm not a doctor, but I continue and I continue in my education in that.
Yeah.
But the one thing about traditional medicines, and I've studied 3 forms. So I've studied Tib Unani, I've studied Chinese and Ayurveda, is that when you study them, it's almost like you recognize that you have windows for looking at things.
Okay.
And in the system, you'll sometimes be looking at something like one way and now you go look at it from another direction and you come back. So there's a peculiar kind of flexibility that you have.
Yeah.
All right. And a discipline with how you look from that perspective.
Yeah.
The thing I find with people who have studied scientific biomedicine is they're really caught up on the fact that science must be the truth. So it's really hard to shake them out of that, to get that kind of flexibility that is really important in treating effectively. Yeah, because sometimes the facts that you have just don't add up.
Yeah,
and those traditional systems are really good at getting you to be flexible.
Yeah, makes sense. And then you got typically, what sort of psychological symptoms would a person have if they suffered sexual abuse in childhood?
Whoa!
People, you're asking so much, guys. I know it's a fascinating live, but what I recommend, if you personally message, everyone follow Sidi Alexander Carberry. You just follow him. Get the book, Know Yourself, on Amazon. Reach out to him personally. He does consultations as well, and inshallah, we'll be working, God willing, toward a whole kind of session on traditional medicine. That's what we're working towards. It's just the beginning stage. So I know it's fascinating, and I'm always asking questions. But okay, there's two here. There's what kind of illnesses come from trauma suffered as a result of abuse? Very quickly, and that's the last thing we'll go.
Very quickly, one of the things about abuse is a betrayal.
Okay.
And as a result of betrayal, you'll find that the main diseases are relationship type diseases.
Okay.
And inappropriateness. The child, once you've abused the child doesn't know where to place that sexual contact. And it doesn't know where to place the sensations and the emotions that come with that.
Wow.
Right? Because some of the sexual abuse may be painful, but some of it might be pleasurable. Right? Does that mean that they wanted it? There's a whole load of things that go on here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there are a whole load of disorders, which initially result in just psychological ones, but then they will become fixed as physiological issues.
Wow.
Yeah. So sometimes you can get all sorts of reproductive disorders.
Yeah.
To do with that. Sometimes you get you get issues of, well, where do I put my sexual needs?
Yeah.
Where do I put them where they're safe?
Yeah.
It could mean that I feel that I'm not safe with, I'm not, like a lot of sexual abuse, women who've suffered sexual abuse by men, may end up seeking relationships with women because they're safer with women.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think a lot of the level of our discussion of these matters is really needs to we really have to raise the bar. Yeah, we really have to raise the bar.
Alhamdulillah. I mean, an hour is never going to be enough, but we're coming to the end of it. I'm going to leave it there. Guys, please, I encourage everyone to follow Alexander Carberry. Message him with your questions. Inshallah, we're putting a course together, which I don't know when that will be, but we're speaking on it. Get the book, Know Yourself, and then keep in touch, man. Thank you so much. It's been awesome. Like, an hour is not enough. I have so much more questions, but we'll leave it there for now, and we'll do more.
Alhamdulillah.
Inshallah. Okay. Right, take care.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum.